Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided. This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy is sponsored by Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with the intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Products include Westlaw, Practical Law, and Firm Central legal practice management software for small law firms. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the Greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is Life Illuminated. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan, acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. A Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology. Look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Access to Democracy returns. It's the Paul Anderson Show, and this is Alan Miller sitting in. We're just going to turn the judge on and let him go for half an hour.
Well, no, you can't do that. I mean, people are going to know how cool you are in light of all the technical difficulties that you had to overcome today to get the show going.
I have to say kudos to all of our crew that were with it today, and the help we've had from Eagan TV. And Mary, who I pick on mercilessly, but who's the best director around and saves us time and again.
Well, they saved you today, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
So, what do you want to talk about, Alan?
Judge, there is so much to talk about. And for those of you who don't know, Paul Anderson stepped down in 2013.
No,
from the Supreme Court.
You forced me to leave.
You're
a citizen of the state of Minnesota.
Very poor law that calls for judicial retirement at 70.
I have no problems with, I could argue you should retire at 72, but, the truth is, there are some people that can serve beyond 70, some that shouldn't. If you put them on a scale, maybe those that shouldn't serve beyond 70 greater.
Some states have 75, yeah. Some states have 80. New York has 3 renewable 2-year terms after 70. One state, I think it's Vermont, has no age limit to it at all.
Life is good after 70, sir.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
And you have done so many things since you retired that I don't know where to start. Let's briefly talk about the Capitol restoration and get that out of the way, and
I'll
then
be
get into the issues
quick
of the day.
And try to be brief on that. The Minnesota Capitol, as I told you before, is one of the 3 or 4 most iconic state capitals in the country. It is a true treasure. It was, in disrepair, literally falling apart. The state of Minnesota, in a bipartisan, nonpartisan way, decided to invest in the Capitol and restore it. It will be open for use in January, but there's going to be 2017, but there will be a grand reopening. Everything will be pretty much done early fall of 2017. And people are going to be amazed. We have uncovered 3 or 4 skylights. We have cleaned the paintings, the Lafarge paintings in the courtroom of the Supreme Court. They used to smoke cigars and You know, is it, you know, they talked about this smoke-filled room. I mean, they cleaned all that grime out, and it will be marvelous. Some of the paintings might be relocated. There's been some controversy about how we have depicted Native Americans or how we have given interpretation to that. I literally, as we speak, the final report of the art subcommittee is being edited by members of the committee. Their comments are due back by noon on Monday, which is the 25th of July, and the report will be to the governor and the commission probably by the end of the week.
Terrific. Now, there are so many issues of the day that, again, we could just go any place. But since you retired, followed by Justice Page, there's actually 3 new judges on the Minnesota Supreme Court, shortly to be a 4th, which means that Governor Dayton will have appointed a majority of the court.
He'll actually appointed 5 justices, but one justice, Mimi Wright, was just sworn in recently onto the federal bench. But he has, and this is big time for Minnesota, in the sense that, you know, courts are populated by human beings. They come to the law from different perspectives. When Justice Sam Hansen left and Justice Dietzen came on, there was a movement more towards a conservative jurisprudential view. Now Dietzen is leaving the end of August, and the balance will probably switch back more to a centrist and moderate. Our court is not liberal. I mean, it is not a liberal court, but I will say that there's probably going to be a shift back from a more conservative point of view to a more centrist, slightly left of center. But you have to stay tuned. You never know where justice is until, you know, 2 or 3 years after.
Particular decision, right.
Yeah, you can see
You start trying to...
And they evolve. They learn how to be a justice.
I mentioned to you before we went on that I just read an article yesterday about the fact that Justice Kennedy is moving to the left.
So, is he moving?
In the U.S. Supreme Court.
Are others moving? See, there are no true... Well, I mean, Kagan and maybe Ginsburg come to closest to a Thurgood Marshall and a William Brennan. I'm not sure that they're completely there. But anyway, and so when they talk about the liberal wing of the court, well, it's the left of center wing of the court, but it's
Breyer.
Breyer, but Breyer is pretty conservative on some things. So
he has been amazingly conservative on some things.
And then you had 5 who were generally viewed as right of center. Of those, Sandra Day O'Connor was I would call a legitimate conservative. I would call, traditional conservative.
A moderate conservative.
And Kennedy is a traditional conservative. Definitely Scalia was a neoconservative. Alito falls into that category. Roberts is closer to that, but he's somewhere between a traditional conservative and Thomas is kind of a neoconservative / libertarian. And so, I mean, I think that what's happening with Kennedy, Scalia is no longer there. You cannot underestimate the influence that Scalia would have internally with conferences and whatever, and his, I mean, he was bright, and I thought his theories of interpretation of the Constitution were wrong, but bright and persuasive. So you may be seeing Kennedy just move a little bit, and maybe it is a little bit out of the penumbra of the Scalia influence. I don't know. So maybe a little movement, but not much.
Very interesting in that regard is the fact that the president designated a replacement for Scalia, and it has become a political football. He dedicated Justice Garland to take Scalia's spot, very well respected.
I mean, if you ask me that question, we're likely to spend the rest of your show on it, because I am very upset with the Senate Republicans, what they're doing with the failure to grant even hearings for Garland. And I'm going to tell you, first of all, The Constitution is pretty clear. The president appoints, nominates, goes to the Senate for advice and consent. Now, they're correct. There's no time limit on it. But senators have a sworn duty to defend and support the Constitution, and the Constitution says they are to advise it. We have now had over 125 days go by without the Senate having a hearing.
And this term ended, a new term is going to begin, and one wonders what is going to happen.
Well, I mean, you
with-
will have
with the election.
You'll have some short-term winners and losers with a 4-member court, but the long-time loser is going to be the United States of America, because you're going to have 4-4 decisions. You're going to have cases that aren't resolved, get sent back. You get decisions that are 4-4 with a plurality. It's unresolved. It's going to have to be relitigated or another case come forward. The court is going to miss that 9th voice. Trust me, I've been in conferences on the court, and all voices at the table are important. I mean, this is what bothers me, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to point out to some of the really bad transgressions I'm seeing. Okay, is that the court is now having foisted on it the dysfunction that is existing in the Senate under its leadership.
And the House.
And the House, but the Senate has to deal with the
Advice
court.
and consent.
And then here's how it plays out. As you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Justice Roberts' jurisprudence. He is a stellar individual, moral, ethical, cares about the court. He is a person that has got impeccable credentials for doing his job right. And by the way, as chief, he's sworn to defend his institution. Before Scalia died, out in Nebraska and then in New England, the New England School of Law, he said, please, Congress, don't foist your dysfunction upon us. So you know what?
And they did.
Know what Senator Grassley from Iowa does? On the 4th of April, he went onto the Senate floor and attacked and condemned Justice Roberts and said that Justice Roberts is making the court political. Now, this is an age-old tactic. You're seeing it in other venues where when somebody is weak, they accuse the other side of their own shortcomings and make a big deal out of it. So what does Grassley do? He goes on the floor and says, Roberts making the court political. He's not. And then he goes on to point the finger at Grassley or at Roberts and say, physician, heal yourself. My advice for Grassley and the other Republicans that are abdicating their sworn duty, physician, heal thyself. I mean, the problem rests with them, and if they want to change it, then they can do it. So, and all I'm asking is that they do their duty, the right thing under the law.
They would have been.
I'm sorry. I mean, this
they would
one
have
really
been
bothers
so
me.
much better off, and it certainly has bothered me terribly, to do their duty. And if they didn't feel that the man was qualified, then don't really give him an upvote.
You know what the problem is, though? Why
that he's eminently qualified.
he is
the
eminently qualified. So they give. I mean, see, what the president did. He said, I will appoint the best person available under the circumstances. He didn't appoint an ideological clone from his point of view. He went and said, there's a Republican Senate, I'm a Democratic president, I'm going to appoint a traditional, centrist, moderate judge with a long history of opinions that you can judge him upon.
A judge who was overwhelmingly approved for the circuit court by the same Senate that won't give him a hearing now.
And praised by Senates. I mean, Susan Collins from Maine said some wonderful things about it. But the problem is, now, and you know, I can't.
Well, you talk about ideological, and I look at the Senate and I say, well, let's rephrase that and just call them idiots.
But this is, I'm going to get to something as a broader problem in society, and it's very troublesome to me, is the willingness of people to believe things that are not factually true, and then keep repeating them. You know, I was in Benghazi, I met with Ambassador Stevens, and they still keep bringing up this untruth of Benghazi. What the Senate has done is they floated all kinds of reasons why they are not going to give hearings, and they cite a Biden rule.
The Biden rule.
There is no Biden rule. I mean, Biden said, yes, if there was no vacancy on the 25th of June, 1992, when he said that if a Supreme Court justice resigns after the end of this term, when they often would resign, the governor should, or the president should wait to appoint. And, but then he said, but if the president consults with us and appoints somebody who is, you know, moderate, and such, we will go ahead and grant hearings. There is no Biden rule. So what does President Obama do? Exactly what Biden said, you know, they should do in their grant hearing. But I'm going to give you, there's a little bit of a capper to this, okay?
And
the Congressional Research Service, a nonpartisan service, says that 1992 was noted for the fact that historically, in a presidential election year, they confirmed more judges that year than they had in any other sequence. 11 appellate court judges, 53 federal district court judges. So the facts don't support.
which really puts the lie to what is going on coming out of the mouths of the Mitch McConnells and the Grassleys and the people who have the power to do their duty under the oath that they all swore to uphold.
Now, they have created a hypocritical situation or conundrum for themselves, because the Senate Republicans have been asked, well, if Hillary Clinton should win the election, will you then proceed to advise and consent with Merrick Garland? And they say maybe. But here's the problem. They have put forth and said that the new president should make this appointment. They're essentially altering the Constitution by fiat and cutting short the president's term. On Monday night, Mitch McConnell said the new president should have the honor of appointing Scalia's replacement, okay? So the question should be put to them, well, are you going to pass on Garland if Hillary Clinton gets elected, because he's going to be so much better for your point of view than if anybody she appoints, because she's going to, you know, have more freedom to appoint? I think that they have to keep the feet to the fire and ask that question. And if they do something like that, it is the height of hypocrisy. It really is. But there seems to be a lot of hypocrisy going on. I'm sorry. I mean,
to be
I need to apologize for
not at
Alan.
all, because
I mean, I really am concerned about this issue. I come at it from the point of
you
a
are
person is
articulating what I have talked about and written about in terms
I mean,
of
okay, I'm going to end on this thing. Alexander Hamilton said in Federalist 78, is the independent judiciary is essential to the survival of our civil society, because it is a protection against the ill humors that emerge in society, some which emerge from the people themselves. And by the Senate Republicans making the court so partisan and taking away some of that, a lot of that independence, they are not fulfilling their duty under the Constitution as drafted by our founders. It's as clear as that.
Now, we have other problems, however. Although Donald Trump in his acceptance speech said that he is going to revamp the criminal justice system in his first 100 days. We will be safe in our homes. I always felt safe in my home to begin with. But number one, what is happening as you look with the judge's eye at our criminal justice system? It seems to be in complete chaos.
It is. And it's all your fault. I'm pointing to you, Alan Miller. It's all your fault. Oh my gosh, Alan. There are three figures in my hand pointing back to me.
Well, it's
I'm part of the
it's
judiciary.
it's a good thing.
I am part of the judiciary has been a part of a problem in many of the institutions, government, law enforcement, and training. And I'm going to try and
You understand that if you point your finger at me like that, and you're black and I have a badge, I will end up shooting you.
Well, I better be careful about that then. But here, you know, is that there are a lot of problems. We had, I mean, it goes back to the time of Nixon and we're going to the law and order and whatever, is that it's a creation of the idea of fear. You know, Franklin Roosevelt says the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. I mean, I've been reading the commentaries on the convention in Cleveland, and that is all they seem to be doing is promoting fear.
And hate.
Okay, I'll just talk about fear at this point. And so we create fear in our society. Now, in the 80s, we had a population bubble coming through of younger people. So we had an increase in crime. And so there was said, let's get tough on crime. So we had a ratcheting up of you know, criminal offenses. Then we had the Kuwait War. By the way, I'm a big fan of George H.W. Bush. I thought he was a good president. Made some mistakes, whatever, but history will treat him well. And I mean, he probably was right to kick Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait, but he was also right not to go to Baghdad. But, you know, we have a professional army now, and so some of the people have a guilt that we send these guys over to fight our battles for us. So what do? We tend to revere them. So we got into a psychological mode of ratcheting up and honoring our troops and our first responders a little bit more than maybe we should. I mean, don't get me wrong. These guys really went on front. But as a society, we tended to glorify it too much. Then we go through the 90s. Then we have 9/11. And I was recently there in Maine. I cannot tell you how, I mean, I was just struck and sad. I mean, the courage shown by the first responders, firemen, police in that situation. So what do? We again elevate.
And many of whom became cancer victims, and we couldn't get the Senate or the House to provide the medical needs for them.
But we had a lot of rhetoric that up to them. And then at the same time, I said there were fingers pointing to me. The court system were doing things, for example, let me just, I think it's 1990, the Supreme Court comes with an opinion and said, if I arrest you or I stop you, deprive you of your freedom under a pretext, but then I find something, maybe a marijuana cigarette in your pocket or something else. The fact that I stopped you for a pretext does not prevent me from using that evidence against you. I mean, from my point of view of the law, is that a police officer is going to stop you and deprive you of your freedom. They have to have probable cause. That's what the Constitution says.
One would
we
think,
have cut some corners on the law with respect to what police can do. Then the other thing, I mean, when I would see good police work, I would actually name the officer in the opinion. But I have also know that there are some bad apples in the police department. And we have not done what we need to do to eliminate some of the bad apples.
Well, it's interesting to me.
Wait, I'm going to tell you how we do this, you know. And then it's that the police departments and whatever, and the review boards, I mean, you have people, I've seen and reviewed how they treat review, and we haven't had proper review and accountability.
And we haven't had proper training in some respects.
Training.
And that's really it. I mean, anybody who wants to be a policeman, I give that person a lot of credit. The fact of the matter is they are willing to put their life on the line to protect the rest of us. But as you said, sometimes rotten apples get through the system. So we have to train better for that.
And we have to have accountability.
And we have to have a review board, perhaps a civilian review board, that doesn't just allow them to go back out onto the street. And we're seeing this year more than in recent years, how that has affected all of society.
The review boards, I've had to review their work and whatever, and they become too dominated with people who are oriented to protect those who misbehave. And we got to get beyond that. This is, Einstein talked about it. This is a whole new paradigm. We got to go into that paradigm. And we got to change our thinking. The problems we are facing now will not be solved using the same thinking that we have had in the past. And people like the courts, the citizens, law enforcement, we all have to step ourselves back from what we have gotten into. We need accountability. We need better training. We need to support the police where they need to be supported and tell them, you know, where you don't do it well, I mean, you're going to be held accountable. And we got to, I mean, this is going to be strange for some people to say, there's a little bit of guilt by citizens in our society that we have other people out there on the line. We put them out there on the line to provide us with safety. And is that we know that we're doing that, and we're asking them to do a tough job, and we kind of overemphasize, kind of overcompensate and put them on a little bit of a too high of a pedestal. No, these are ordinary human beings, and we need to treat them that way. Thank them for what they're doing.
Absolutely, because you could be on the force for 25 years, but the first time somebody shoots at you, to me, you have earned whatever salary you made during that period of time.
I mean, I'm going to be a little bit more bold than I have in the past.
And you've got a minute and 20 seconds to do it.
One of the problems, and I've talked to police officers about this, the way we have citizens have armed themselves to the point, it's scary for a police officer because more and more they are not sure whether there's a gun present. And many times, I mean, their fear is justified because they find a gun. So that is scary.
We certainly have seen a lot of that lately, but they do also make mistakes too. And
well, I mean,
as you say,
this autistic person who had a toy truck, and you know, is it? I mean, I don't know.
They ended up shooting his physician.
Physician, yeah, PhD, understand, who was lying on his back on the street with his hands in the air. He said, "I thought I was doing everything right so that I was protected," and then they shot him.
Fortunately, he wasn't killed.
Yeah.
We've been talking with a retired Supreme Court Justice of Minnesota, Paul Anderson.
Can I leave you with one thought?
And we have 23 seconds. Fire away.
We need to ask the people, the citizens, the members of your audience, to engage and understand is that we need to engage and not, we can't use the same old mindset, the same old type of thinking. This is a big problem, and we got to deal with it.
Thank you, Judge Anderson.
care.
We can't go beyond that.
I got what I needed.